Contarino from Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here and for the opportunity to present today. So Anthony and I are going to talk about how you operationalise resilience-based management at the scale of the Great Barrier Reef World Heritage Area. So before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners upon the country that we live, work and play, and for the Reef Joint Field Management Program that extends from Moreton Bay in the south all the way through the Great Barrier Reef catchment through to the Torres Straits in the north, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. So who are we, everybody? Because people may not be familiar with the Reef Joint Field Management Program. So just a really quick introduction. It's a long-term relationship between the state and the Commonwealth to deliver a field-based program in the World Heritage Area. In 22-23, we had about 193 staff. We work over 5 operational bases. We've got a fleet of 21 vessels that covers the entire World Heritage Area. We deliver a range of activities across that. And all of our work is actually focused on resilience-based management. I mentioned before, this is a relationship between the Commonwealth and state governments. It's actually one of the longest running enduring relationships that you can point to. So this is a 45-year relationship. It was started with the signing of the Emerald Agreement in 1979, and it allows us to effectively deliver services across the World Heritage Area tenure blind. And that's a real advantage when you're trying to debate whose jurisdiction you're working within. And part of that is the beauty of having a zoning plan that covers both the state and the Commonwealth areas. With the delivery of any program, and we've heard sort of repeated measures of it today, making sure your program is well governed is a real key for success. For the Reef Joint Field Management Program, we've got a really well developed governance system that covers both the state and the Commonwealth at multiple levels and allows us to deliver our business effectively and efficiently, but also allows us to pivot when we have a certain situation evolving on the reef, say for example a mass bleaching event like we're currently experiencing. But for us, and probably for most of us in the room, how do we have that unique value proposition in an area and I suppose a work area that's increasingly congested and contested? So how is us at the Reef Joint Field Management Program continue to deliver that unique value proposition across the area the size of the World Heritage Area? And at that, I'm going to hand across to Anthony.
Thanks, Mark. When we were thinking about setting up for this talk, you're trying to put together and piece together in your mind what resilience means in the first place and how you manage resilience and how you manage for resilience. And the analogy that I could come up with, I guess, was it sometimes feels like you're constantly working inside a big jigsaw puzzle. And I'm sure that everybody in this room would agree that it would be great if the jigsaw puzzle actually was that simple and that easy to sort out. And not only do we have a big jigsaw puzzle to try and put together, but some of us work as a small part of that jigsaw puzzle, and there's puzzles inside that we're constantly trying to resolve as well. So it is complicated. It's a wicked problem dealing with the resilience for the GBR, and coming into a room and an audience like this and seeing the amount of work that's going on and how people are interacting, so that it gives us hope. But trying to join those pieces together is a tough gig for all of us in our respective organisations. And as Mark said, the enduring relationship with the Commonwealth and the state, that's 2 big pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. And it really boils down, in a lot of cases, to that personal relationships and the on-ground relationships between officers that give us the grunt to go and do the work that we need to do. And we often sort out some of the politics and some of the other things later on, with the primary goal being the resilience of the GBR. The Reef 2050 plan has a pretty good crack at trying to make some sense of that jigsaw puzzle in my mind, and where all the 8 different investment priorities for the Reef 2050 plan. We fit in here with modern marine park management, but we dabble across a few of them. We have some pretty strong input into traditional owner priorities. We also work within the integrated monitoring and reporting. We also participate with Crown Thorn starfish control. and we've dabbled in the restoration and adaptation world as well. And I think over the last few years we've expanded, the program's expanded and doubled in size, and then the new doubling in size of work on the reef has been what we've seen from some of our traditional owner partners who've presented this morning as well, in a huge workforce out there that is really keen to get in and do some of this work together to protect the reef. So I think over time a lot of these things interact, but we have to be really focused on the most important thing that we deliver, which is modern marine park management. And in the spirit of lots of flowcharts and things, we've also got a bunch of priorities. Intergovernmental agreement that's signed between the state and the Commonwealth sets out 9 priorities. The Reef Joint Field Management Program has 5 key priorities, which are, I know these, excuse me. You can see them all at the top: upholding compliance and all the other ones. They're all important parts of what we try to deliver, but the guiding principles are what we put in. I think Lorna mentioned before about the budgets and understanding what our inputs are and what money we need to deliver what we need to, and also working with traditional owners, which isn't a theme, it's a guiding principle to how we work, and that has changed a lot over the years and is a huge investment for us into the future. Strategically, we spend about we sort of try and put about $1 million a year into building our partnerships with traditional owner groups. But as Mark said, about 70 groups across the GBR. We currently have partnerships in one form or another, whether it be fee-for-service arrangements on a minor scale through to joint management partnerships and where traditional owners are starting to actually lead programs within the field management program. It's important to have line of sight in our program priorities for delivery of the Reef 2050 plan. While there's a plan and while we're talking about resilience in 2030 and 2050, stuff's happening now. We are very heavily engaged in managing the day-to-day use of the Great Barrier Reef. One of our highest priorities was reaching the reef as well, and coming to the realisation that to manage the day-to-day aspects and impacts on the GBR, we really need to be out there doing the work, and that's been part of that investment strategy as well. And we often like to show our big shiny boats and the gear and the capability that we've got, but those are the platforms that we can use to not only get out and do the work that we need to do, but also to work closely with traditional owners, bring traditional owners onto country and build capacity so that traditional owners can start to lead some of these projects. And the next 5 years, I guess, is our challenge. We've expanded now. We're at a point where we've doubled the size of the Reef Joint Field Management Program, and the next 5 years really for us is proving that we were worth it. We're worth the investment. We can get work done. We are a significant contributor into reef resilience, and that the partnerships that we have and that are created through the people in this room promote that. The 2050 plan also talks about the 4 main threats. As many of you know, we are most of the RJFMP is involved in direct human use in our day-to-day management and the work that we can do to manage that direct human use. So we don't have time to talk about all the puzzle pieces, so we just thought we'd use one example of the puzzle, and that's buying time for green turtles, and trying to simplify again from the jigsaw puzzle to resilience. I often think that resilience is about the big things that we're trying to control internationally and nationally, but the small things that we're doing are small scale and sometimes feel small scale, but they're the local resilience. I think, again, stealing from the previous presentation, acting locally has a global impact as well. So buying time for green turtles, as we often talk about our resilience work as a thing where we're trying to buy some time while the big things happen that we need to happen for the reef. And back in the Rain Island, many people in the room will know about Rain Island, the most important green turtle nesting rookery. studied, monitored to death for decades. In the mid to late 90s, started to record the first tidal inundation on Rain Island. Over the following 13, 14 years, a lot of work, more monitoring occurred, and at sort of the late 2000s, between developing relationships with traditional owners, getting sound, good scientific advice, decisions were made around, not sitting on our hands, and we often use those terms when we talk about intervening, but not sitting on our hands and making that decision to do something and take a risk. One of those things led to sort of phase one of the project, which was in partnership with external partners, GBRF, BHP, Commonwealth and State, and most importantly with Wurundjeri people and Meriam Nation peoples, who formed part of the Rain Island Recovery Project team, also a traditional owner working group that was advised by a scientific advisory group, so that we can back ourselves in the decisions that we make and then set up how we're going to monitor what the impacts of those decisions are over time. The first phase was actually doing sand profiling, and many people in this room have probably seen the sand profiling work that was done at Rain Island, in the full knowledge that, again, we're buying time. We know that the sand can't replenish itself there naturally. So we're buying time until we can work out the next steps, and hopefully things can change and some of the big decisions can be made to impact on rain. We've worked into phase two of the project, including before phase two commenced, we also installed things like fencing along cliffs to try and reduce mortality of females. The other thing that we know at Rain Island is it's not producing male turtles, and we're continuing to produce largely a female population of turtles with temperature. So again, in the advice, working with traditional owners, working with the scientific advisory group, we're sort of moving towards phase two of the program, again with that idea of buying us some more time. Phase two, as many people may also know, that Rain Island is a priority place, has been declared under the Threatened Species Action Plan as a priority place. So while there is a lot of connection to that place, one of the speakers this morning talked about connection and people's values guiding decisions. One of the key values for the island from the traditional owner perspective has not just been about the island itself, it's been about the species that the island supports. So having turtles long term, regardless of what happens to rain, is extremely important to people. And so phase two will start to move into a traditional owner-led model, which is feeding into that investment area around traditional owner priorities, where the traditional owners have been very clear with us that long term they would like to lead this project and lead the work that happens there, including interacting with other traditional owner groups, because part of phase two will be a proof of concept and around moving eggs from Rain Island to other beaches and other areas, other islands, and potentially the mainland, which also comes with a lot of complexity, mainly around pest species and pigs and things like that. So we've got a lot of work to do, but at the moment we're at proof of concept. At the moment we're working closely with people on what our next stages are going to be. Again, another piece of the puzzle, and in doing this, sort of made us realise that not a lot is known about foraging areas as well, which has led to another project that largely delivered by the program, but largely led by the Reef Authority around the foraging areas for green turtles. A lot of people are working in this space, as Mark said, congested and contested, and I think one of our big challenges in the future, just for this part of the puzzle, is how we all overlap and how we're actually joining together to use that knowledge for the decisions we make. If anybody gets the opportunity to try and make a picture of what your program looks like, I don't recommend it. So if if your particular organisation isn't up on the wall, I'm sorry, but this is as close as we could get. But I guess it just illustrates the complexity of a multi-use park. Yes, it's a place that is important for conservation for the future, but it's also multi-use. So not only are we dealing with conservation issues and like the turtle piece of the puzzle, there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we're continually managing as part of the field management program, and everybody in this room is doing. So I guess the take-home message for us is it's complicated. We have expanded, and we are keen to work in partnership with people. We recognise that people in the room and other areas in the room are the leaders in this stuff, and we can support as opposed to be the leader. And also our commitment to working closely with traditional owners into the future, acknowledging that that's a big area and requires a huge investment into the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mark. We are actually right on time, so unless there's a really burning question. Oh, we have a question. All right, please.
Thank you. This one's from Phil Laycock, who asked, and I assume, Phil, this is for this presentation here, let me know if it's not, but why the interest in moving to sites of ecological value? Isn't this method better suited to the scale and value involved at reef sites with high economic value? Ooh, I'm assuming that may be for you, Lana. And if Phil, I'm sorry that came in late, Phil, so maybe if that is for you, do you want to just quickly jump up and answer that for the group? I'm sorry. Thank you.
So, yeah, I guess the reason why we started the Coral Nurture program was to focus on high value sites, but that was when we were testing out the scalability of the outplanting efforts. And so it just made sense to focus on the sites which would have more of a social impact, because we weren't sure on the ecological changes we're able to achieve. So now that we know we can increase coral cover at certain sites, now we are looking to go to those sites which have initial low coral cover. So yeah, that's why we wanted to move on to that.
Can I quickly add to that question?
Sorry.
So the answer to that, then, at what scale are you talking about ecological value, at the reef scale or at the region scale?
So more at a site level, because it still takes people power to plant corals in the water. Although saying that at Coralpalooza last year, I think if John's here, Wavelength managed to plant out 3,000 corals in one day. So, I mean, they're getting pretty good at the people power side of things. But again, 3,000 corals in one day is great for a site. For an entire reef, would take a lot more effort, and we're not at that stage yet. Yeah.
Multiple examples, but thinking about scaling in the work that we do. And thank you for putting that example in practice about sharing the space. And big thank you to Anthony and to Mark for your presentation.